All right. Yeah. Sweet.
We made it.
Hi. Welcome back. I took a bit of a hiatus for a while. And I am now back here with Alanna Shaffer.
Hello.
And we are talking about Gender Theory and Ethical Non-Monogamy, Part 2. If you remember, if you watched the series before, Alanna was my first guest.
Pilot episode.
Right? And so we talked back and forth about that then. And this is just kind of building on that. We're talking about gender and ENM, or what is ENM again?
Ethical non-monogamy.
Ethical
Yeah,
non-monogamy.
You got it.
Relationships in media,
Yeah.
because there are, holy crap, so many. I mean, a lot of comedy and drama is all people just not understanding how to converse in a way that's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that is funny is becoming less entertaining the older I get.
That is exactly why I wanted this particular topic as my part 2, because that was what I was thinking about at the end of part 1 that we didn't have time to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like growing up the way that I look, largely femme presenting, and with the whole world telling me that's what I was and just kind of doing the thing that people said. You know, I bought into the archetypes and stereotypes that are so prevalent in media in the way that they portray relationships. You know, you watch enough TV and movies and dramatizations of stuff, then you're like, okay, that's the example that you're setting. That's
how I'm
society's
supposed to be.
Expectations, of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so people mimic that. But that is such a small sliver of the human experience, and the range of complexity in relationships is so much bigger than it's portrayed in media.
Yeah.
And being ethically non-monogamous, polyamorous specifically, I have always struggled with engaging in media, and it's like TV shows and movies, but it's also music.
Oh yeah.
And
love
how many
songs
songs have you heard singing about a love triangle, or I'm with this person but I'm in love with that person? What do I do? This is the worst. And I never want to be that person that's well, if you were poly, this wouldn't be a problem, because that's not true. And poly is much more complicated than that. But it's oversimplifying by a mile. But at the same time, most of the conversations that have been had in music, lyrics, the stories that are being told, are all the same story. And I'm honestly just tired of hearing the same stories over and over again, because then it makes it feel like the only stories.
Oh yeah.
And because I know those aren't the only stories, those are the stories I want to hear more.
Yeah.
And
the old boy meets girl.
Right.
Boy lies to girl,
right.
Or girl lies to boy to get boy to like them.
Mm-hmm.
They date. Mm-hmm. They find out that, oh no, someone lied, and then there's drama and tension, and then they either break up or they get back together. Why can't people just communicate?
Right. Pick a different arc. You know, I'm tired of the love triangle arcs. Twilight just pissed me off so much.
Man, Starship Troopers was a better love story than Twilight.
Most things were a better story than Twilight, for sure. And it's I'm watching a story of people who are struggling, and you know, I like to think that I'm an empathetic person and I want the best for people. So when I see people struggling, I feel bad. I want to help.
Right.
You know? And but the media that we engage in and the stories that we're telling inform our perception of the society we're living in. So when we are hearing the same stories over and over again, oh, if you love someone, you're not allowed to love anybody else. And if you do, you're bad and wrong.
Yeah. And make sure you check their phone and their email.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Make sure to be as invasive as possible in their privacy to show that you don't trust them and or manipulate them in the relationship to do the thing you want them to do.
Yeah.
They are setting expectations for very toxic behavior in relationships, and it's normalized.
Yeah.
And
this isn't to say that monogamy, there's anything wrong
No,
with
not at all.
monogamy.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's just communication has to be paramount. I mean, especially look at everything that's happening with the world.
Yep.
A lot of us just stopped being able to communicate
Yeah.
in an effective way.
We got, what is it? It's like compassion fatigue, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Because so much bad shit has been happening, and we've all been trying to be compassionate to all the things that are happening, but eventually it's starting to become too many things.
Yeah.
And we're running out of, it's kind of a limited supply before you start to burn out. But yeah, so like, I get frustrated when I'm engaging with media and it's always telling the same story. And it makes it hard for someone like myself who is open and loud about my polyness and my queerness and my neurospiciness, about all the things I am. I'm very vulnerable to people, and that makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And
same.
so when I'm like, okay, well, why don't you just have a conversation with your partner about the thing? And they're like, oh, why? And I'm like,
clarity?
and like you said, it's not none of this is really a dig on monogamy specifically.
Yeah.
Like, it's just because it's not my way doesn't mean it's the wrong way. And if it works for them, it works for them. But the rules are still the same.
Also, is it really working for them?
Exactly.
If you can't communicate your needs effectively, how is your partner supposed to meet them?
Exactly. Right? Yes. And it's like, you can't communicate with a person. Oh, hey, we have people in chat. Hey, Lang. Oh, yeah. Ownership is an expectation of partnership is really pervasive, too, as a concept. Yeah. Super true. Yeah, like, they're mine. Like, that possessive fucking...
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're mine and nobody else's. And you're just like, I'm sorry. What? I am a whole person.
Exactly.
But, yeah, it makes it difficult as somebody who is trying to actively live poly with integrity and transparency. Yeah. It's frustrating for me to watch the opposite message be glorified to a toxic extent. Yeah. It's like, it's fine to feel ways in relationships, it's okay to feel jealousy. Yeah. It's what you do about your jealousy that is what causes the problem. Yeah. Having it is not the sentence, it's not the crime. Yeah, right. Having jealousy is not the crime. It's how you treat other people about your jealousy or react to it or whatever. Yeah. Or act on it, I should say. Yeah. That's what matters. And that is what I see in so many shows and movies and songs and stuff that are just like, it's just literally all about glorifying cheating. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
oh yeah, and God,
fucking why?
Man.
Like, what example are you trying
and
to
there are
set?
so many songs about cheating.
Yes.
I'm so tired. Pina Colada is a song about cheating.
I literally had this exact conversation with somebody, like, I think within the last year, like, very recently. I am very uncomfortable with that song, despite how annoyingly catchy it is.
I know, but it's like you've been married for how long and neither of you knew. Right. Really?
Right. Because to me, it didn't come across like a cutesy, oh, look, we happen to be into the same stuff and we just never knew kind of thing. It was, I don't communicate with my partner what my needs are. So they felt so distant from me that they felt compelled to cheat on me and be dishonest and break the boundaries of our relationship about it. Oh, yeah. Ooh, isn't that funny and cute? And I'm like,
or we never made the attempt. We never made the attempt to get to know each other. Yeah. I mean, in American culture,
it just spoke to a much deeper problem.
Yeah, and I think my biggest problem is that a lot of men tend to see women as the enemy, but I have to put my pussy in the enemy. Right. But they're the enemy. Right. So I can only engage in penetrative sex with my girlfriend or wife. Right. But all the cool shit in my life I save for the dudes. Right. And why would you do that? Yeah. If you like, and so there's this prevailing attitude of hatred against that which you desire. Yes, exactly. Because how dare you be desirable?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. It's like it honestly, it speaks to a very deep level of self-loathing and insecurity that I remember we touched on last time. Fear begets fear, begets fear, begets fear, etc. And that is at its core, like, everybody's problem is everyone's afraid. And
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't handling it very well,
Mhm.
you know? But how you handle your fear
Yeah.
is everything in relationships.
We don't really teach kids how to handle fear
Yeah.
in school. We don't really teach kids how to handle conflict
Yeah.
in school.
Mhm.
It's always stop hitting Tommy.
Right.
But this is why you should stop hitting Tommy, and this
Right.
is why it's bad to hit anybody.
Right.
It
Or
just-
even, like, finding out, like, okay, you're hitting Tommy. Why did you hit Tommy?
yeah.
Right.
What
And,
what are you getting out of
right.
that? What kind of behavior are you
And-
trying to meet?
Yeah, especially if it starts, you know, going with this example, especially if it starts when I'm not looking and I turn around and I see you hitting Tommy. Maybe Tommy hit you first and I just turned around and saw the second punch. Like,
yeah.
I don't have any context except what I have in front of me. So if you give me nothing else, I only have this context, which is why the saturation of this, like, toxic message in media is so terrifying to a degree, because if that's the only message that people are getting, people think that this is the only thing, and then everything that's different is bad and wrong, and then they start to be hateful about it to other people. But this message needs to get out to people so that,
God, yes.
you know, it's not so weird.
I wish that instead of teaching to beat the test, we actually we would actually have classes about being empathetic as a child.
Yes.
You don't hit people.
Yes.
You don't yell at people. You don't bite people, and you don't smack people.
Yeah.
And this is why. And I understand as a child, you've got a low gainer on that shit, but it's because you're a baby and you're trying to figure life out. And it's your parents' job and the community around you to tell you what is and what is not appropriate. And so you have a whole lot of people who aren't being told that their violent and abusive behavior is inappropriate, and then that makes it into sitcoms and it becomes funny.
There was a whole, like, the number of shows that I have seen that are, like, I think one of the examples I was talking about recently was, I think it's You, maybe, like, it's just You.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it. I've only seen like clips and bits and stuff that people have shared and memes and whatnot from it, but I if I remember correctly, it's about, like, basically a stalker kind of possessive level partner or whatever. And there were a lot of conversations when that show came out about how, like, it felt like it was glorifying this, like, very toxic, like, don't even get me started on 50 Shades, but, like, glorifying this toxic thing in a relationship. But then people were like, no, they're talking about it to talk about it so that it's visible. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're trying to make something that is toxic and bad in relationships be toxic and bad and be recognizable as such, why are you framing it in a way that is appealing to people?
Yeah. Instead of, like, why aren't people calling that guy out on his shit?
Exactly. Yes.
Throughout the entire
Why does that
show?
character not go through consequences for their actions? And
It's,
again,
I
I've
don't
never
need
seen
to
the
see
show,
a TV
so.
show to let me know that people don't face consequences.
Yes.
This country protects abusers all the time.
Yep.
I can't even tell you how many times I had friends or personally was bullied, and I always got in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, this country protects the bully.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit.
And it's usually because the bully has money.
Yeah. Yeah, money or influence or power.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I, like, part of the reason that I wanted to touch on this in particular is because of how, like, it's an election year, and, like, we survived it so far, and God, I hope that keeps going.
Maybe so.
I hope so. But I think that because of what we as a country, and by extension the world watching us, is about to experience again, is going to rock everything we know. It is going to initiate conversations with people in very visible platforms and in very emotional ways.
Yeah.
And I have never been, and this is absolutely, I consider this a privilege for myself.
Yeah.
I have never been so scared that someone's gonna, like, hurt me, like, physically or really emotionally, but like, so scared that I did not feel comfortable being myself. when I know what that is at the time, because you learn, you grow, you change, you find out things about yourself. I didn't know that I was autistic until like a year and change ago, you know, and like that just totally changed my whole fucking life, you know?
Yeah.
But like when you don't talk about stuff, it fades into the back. And so I know my experiences with media as a person who lives poly, like it's not even just like a relationship status for me. For me, poly is like an identity. It is who I am, regardless of how many people I happen to be with at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And we all love movies and TV and kitties. And it makes it really hard to enjoy that while we know that we are trying to live with integrity and do it right and have conversations with each other and do it in healthy ways, when all of the examples of how we live are being tainted by the worst possible examples of poly. And you know, and I'll throw kink in there as well. Because, like, you know, it is very uncommon to find media that portrays, you know, ethical non-monogamy, full stop. Like, not even portrays it in a particular kind of way.
Yeah,
like,
you
portrays it at all.
Yeah, you rarely see it, and if you see it, it's being disparaged by the monogamous characters.
Exactly.
On
Yes,
screen.
there's always some like comment or
how's
joke at
that
their
working
expense.
for you? That
yeah,
kind
exactly.
of shit.
The whole like, oh, that couple at the end of the bar like gives you that look, and I'm just like,
right.
On the one hand, I will play into that joke occasionally just to be a little funny, but at its core, it bothers me so deeply. Because I'm like, literally not everyone's like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally not everyone is like that. I don't do that. I'm not creepy.
Yeah. I certainly try
I hope
not
I'm
to
not
be
creepy.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm creepy to some people. I don't mean to be creepy. I promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to start the conversation with people and really just like be loud about it, because I feel like, especially with the younger generation who have kind of seen the millennials start to be loud and have kind of adopted this as like, oh, we're loud. We can be loud.
Yeah.
We're gonna be loud. Fuck you. We'll be loud. Like, you can't tell me to shut up. And I'm just like, yes, you can take that and run with that.
Hell yeah.
For as long as you've got that spell slot,
yes,
you fucking run with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll be back up.
Don't let anybody take that from you.
You need water?
Our generation had it forcibly removed from us, and so you must now live vicariously. We have to live vicariously through you. Please go fight on our behalf. We're old and tired now. But I think because they are so willing to talk about it now, the conversations are being had more often.
Oh yeah.
And in much more public platforms. And I think that that's making a huge difference, and why people are feeling more comfortable talking about it and like even just starting the conversation, you know, not even necessarily like talking about anything specific, but just being able to be comfortable being vulnerable with somebody enough to have the conversation in the first place.
Well, and man, vulnerability can be such a superpower. It's when you lean into your vulnerability that other people are able to see you as trustworthy.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. That's exactly how you build trust. And it has to be true vulnerability, not like feigned vulnerability.
Yep.
You know? Because there's like disingenuous or inauthentic vulnerability is just as harmful as not being vulnerable in the first place.
Yeah, but if you're not uncomfortable or anxious while you're sharing something, you're probably not really being vulnerable.
Right, exactly. And maybe like depending on where you're at on whatever it is you're talking about, maybe that's an indicator that you don't feel as vulnerable about that thing as you used to, or that or that you do when you're hiding it. Subconsciously or consciously. But like when you want to talk about like yourself, your identity, your desires to your partner, to your friends, to your family, to yourself, you have to take your walls down enough to let that message get through. And allowing yourself to bring those walls down and let yourself be vulnerable and take the risk of, because it's fear, you know, it's fear of rejection, it's fear of judgment, it's fear of punishment, it's fear of the bad thing, and not knowing how it's going to turn out is scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has to be, the person you're with has to be worth that risk. And if they're not, why are you with them?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know,
Like,
and if they can't meet you where they are, where you are, you have to ask yourself if you're okay with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
Because
know?
some people know exactly what kind of relationships they want and have a desire to go only a certain amount of levels into it, like emotionally investing or time commitment, or some people have boundaries. And it's like, cool, tell me what those are. Like, I don't need the rules to be anything specific, but I do need to know what they are.
Yeah,
so that I can follow them.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But if you're not having those conversations with people, then you don't know what the rules are, and then everything you do could be good or bad.
Everything you end up doing
a lot of
becomes
anxiety.
everything you end up doing becomes a mystery because you don't. It's again, I don't think we've mentioned critical thinking, but man, that's really important. Like
Absolutely.
being able to engage in critical thinking, and the more you're able to do that, the more you realize that it's incumbent upon you to navigate the relationships that you're in a healthy way for you and the people you're talking to.
Yes.
And when you do that, the possibility of the connections with other people that
insane.
Opens up is just, it's gobsmacking. It's amazing.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good because you don't truly develop like lasting bonds with other humans in the same way that you build them, like not as oversimplifying as saying like trauma bonding, but like as you do when you are vulnerable with each other.
Yeah. When you hold space for another person and they hold space for you.
Yeah. That is like exchanging parts of your soul together.
And it's also like it's a broadening of your awareness.
Yes.
And it's a broadening of the capacity of your heart to open up to more love.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
You can see more love.
And that's a perfect segue by accident. That is exactly how I view ethical non-monogamy, or at least my particular flavor of poly.
Yeah,
is the like open to possibilities kind of thing, you know. And I think that if more people allowed themselves to love more, then I feel like a lot of the fear they feel would lessen. As an individual, but also, you know, as a race of humans, like.
But it should be stated that, you know, I mean, be aware of the people that you're being open to, be aware of the people you're being vulnerable with.
Yes.
And honestly, use vulnerability as an acid test.
Yes.
If you're vulnerable with somebody and they're a fucking asshole, they just took the trash out.
Yeah, exactly. They did you a favor.
They did you a favor. And
absolutely.
I remember 30 years ago, a friend of mine was telling me how clarity is so important. And it was like, yeah, patience. How long is that going to take? and holy shit, to realize at 55, 56 that no, really, the more you're able to be clear about your needs, and you have a clear understanding of what the other person wants, then there's no minefield.
Yes.
There's no walking on eggshells because you know the lay of the land.
Yes. And you had the conversations. You know what you expect from each other and what you want from each other.
Yeah.
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 It's a whole other world, right?
It really is. It really is. Not to get all, you know, on a rug and Prince of Persia about it, but, you know, or Aladdin. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I'm mixing up my metaphors.
It's okay. I love this fucking cat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad he decided to join us.
Set is awesome.
But yeah, so I talked a whole bunch about my frustrations with media.
Yeah.
I know we've got some people in chat. Hey guys, thanks for joining in.
Yes, thank you so much.
I wanted to see if anybody who's in the chat now has any questions that they want me to answer or topics that you'd like to introduce while we have a couple of minutes before I move on to the next thing.
It looks like I'm seeing integrity and transparency. I will also crucially add accountability, which 100%.
Absolutely.
I think America is unique in the fact that it is a country peopled by human beings who live and die by, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah. We're all brats. And all humans are brats.
Yeah.
Not really, but like it feels like that a lot of the
Yeah,
time where, you want to engage with them and help, but they get defensive and go, well, I won't do it. Fuck you. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I won't do what you tell me,
Yeah.
etc. And then they do the opposite and they end up hurting themselves or other people. And you're like, but
or their children or
Yeah.
their communities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or themselves.
Yeah.
And like, I think that because of our exposure to media and because we're hearing the same story over and over again, we're used to the protagonist because the protagonist is the one that's supposed to get their way in that story.
Well, the
most
hero.
Of the time. Yeah, the hero or whatever. So if you've got, there's a dude and a girl, and the dude likes the girl, but this dude also likes this other girl, and doesn't know what to do. And there's a whole love triangle, cheating, will they, won't they, sitcom, whatever arc going on. And then at the end of the story, the dude still gets something.
Yep.
And so
when what he should get is a kick in the nuts.
Right. And like, the way that they have these characters behave
it's
about
appalling.
their predicament and then seemingly get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
And then so many of those stories get told over and over and over again, that becomes people's expectations.
Yeah.
And it gets normalized that way.
It's like pornography.
Yeah.
Some of the grittier pornography, a lot of people are like, oh well, she likes it when I punch her in the back of the head.
Right.
What?
Like, what?
Who? How many? Can I get can we get a Gallup poll for fuck's sake?
Can we get F's in the chat for whoever the fuck? Like,
dude.
My God. Yeah, no, it's taking one very small example of something and like extrapolating that out to be the rule for every instance of that thing.
Yeah. I've noticed that a lot of people look for like snippets of conversation to it's like, is there a script?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's not, honey. There's really not a script.
No.
The only script is don't be a dick. And so many people miss that. I mean, it's on page 3.
It's not even in the fine print, really. It's just in the rest of it. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
A classic equation for every holiday rom-com. Yeah, exactly. Topical, too, since it's about to be December. Yeah. We're about to be inundated with all these Christmas love stories.
Oh, Lane, not enough Hollywood movies end with desperately needed breakup and or restraining order they need.
Facts. Facts and truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's no consequences.
Yeah.
So I've talked a bunch about the frustrations, and I actually had some suggestions for media that I have found that I do like. That is like, that I think sets a good example. And we've talked a lot about the poly part of it. And I want to touch on the gender part of it briefly before we jump into that next one. Specifically because of like the holiday love story, rom-com like vibes that we're about to have to go through now for the next, till March. Because it doesn't stop in December.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But to be clear, the reason that those are so prevalent is because people are so shitty to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And
it's like you have to have this imaginary boyfriend that, I don't know, sees you as a human being.
Right. Oh, yes.
And respects your opinion and knows how to take care of themselves.
That's offensive.
I know, right?
How dare you suggest such a thing?
Rude. So rude.
But yeah, and it's like along with, the relationship structure come things like gender roles.
Yep.
And I am so fucking tired of the way that media portrays gender roles. And again, I'll talk a little bit about a couple of things that I have found that I feel are a good contribution to the conversation about gender identity and sexuality and relationships and all that stuff. But like, when I was on this show last and we talked about I hesitate to say relationship with gender because for me, I don't really have one. Like, I think the thing I said last time was I missed the gender.exe plugin. Like, I don't get it. I don't know why we need it. Yeah. It doesn't really, do anything for me. I wasn't at that pitch meeting. Right. Nobody asked me.
Yeah.
But it is a reality for many people. So just because I don't understand it doesn't make it, like, not real, Exactly. It just means I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So while I'm engaging with media and I see people saying things like, a woman is blah,
Mm.
and then listing out a bunch of specific criteria that may or may not be directly related to their biology, or may not be directly related to their outward presentation, their aesthetic, how they choose to dress, what does their hair look like, you know, are they wearing makeup, like what are their accessories, etc.
A woman is femme.
Right, exactly. And
yeah.
again, I wasn't at that pitch meeting, so nobody asked me.
Same.
You know, my whole thing in general is that I didn't get to decide what makes something feminine and what makes it masculine.
Yeah.
So all I can do is accept that's what other people think it is, even if I don't get why.
Yeah.
I just have to, like, this is the world I live in.
You have to navigate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I know that how I present myself is something that other people have come up with a name for.
Yeah.
But I don't do it because it's called that. I do it because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Or look good, depending on what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I'm so tired of seeing in media and hearing in music and reading in books and all this stuff. Just this, like, heavy, just jagged divide between binary genders specifically.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting because how the fuck are you going to have a conversation with people about who you are if, like, you're only allowed to be one of two things?
Mm-hmm. It is exhausting.
We are entirely, like, too complicated a species to just boil it down to, like, you're either this or you're this. And it's like, there are so many more options.
It's nuance is not something nuance is not something that humans are, like, really good with.
No, absolutely not. Especially if you're neurospicy.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
We miss that shit, like, by miles a lot of the time. Or we don't, but other people haven't caught up to it yet.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, it's thanks to environments like this that we question ourselves.
Yeah.
Because, well, people don't act like that on TV. Unless they are very specifically referencing, like, oh, well, this person's autistic. Or this character is queer. This character is autistic.
Yeah.
So we're going to play them in a stereotypical way so that you know they're different.
Yeah. So it's obvious.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and because it's so normalized, that's how other people think, A, autistic people act or behave, and B, autistic people are like, oh, clearly I'm not acting like this, so therefore I'm doing this wrong, or I am wrong, and I have to change. And then, like, it creates confusion by presenting singular examples of a thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone else who doesn't fit in that definition is immediately questioning their whole identity and their place in the world. And that's scary. And that makes people defensive and lash out. And it creates fear.
Yeah.
And fear is the thing that starts all the fucking fires that end up being all of the stress and drama and hate and shit that is prevalent in our world.
Yeah.
You know, it starts with fear. And I feel like, I'll get into the good parts of this now. I feel like examples of things that I think do the conversation justice need to be shared. And I've been very loud about both of these things recently. Lots of people have either heard me suggest it or I've literally sat them down and been like, we're watching this. And the first one is a movie on Netflix called Nimona. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically a story of a kind of like a fae being. It's like an origin story of, like, oh, you know, at the beginning of time there was this being and this other being, and they had a, like, knockdown, drag out battle, and so now we fight the darkness and blah blah. It's very, like, mythologically leaning.
Yeah,
The animation is amazing. The soundtrack slaps so fucking hard. But it's a story about this character Nimona, and I won't give away any spoilers because I really want people to see it. But it's basically about identity and your place in the world and who you matter to and why you matter to them. And one of the lines that the character Nimona has in this movie is literally in, I think, Nimona and the other main character are on, like, a train, like a metro train kind of thing, and they're eating pizza and stuff, and the other character is trying to, Ballister, that's his name, Ballister is trying to, like, get Nimona to define themselves. And Nimona as a character in the movie is like a shapeshifter.
Mhm.
So when I say fae, like I mean it.
Nice.
Like supernatural being. And that becomes a whole like, well, that's fucking weird, like thing in the story. It's part of the story.
Yeah.
And so when Nimona first meets Ballister, they are in the form of like a low, like 13 to 14, low year teenager.
Mhm.
Teenage like girl
Yeah.
shaped thing. And then sometimes she's a shark. And then sometimes they're a rhino. And then sometimes it's a little boy. Or like it's just different shapes. And so Ballister was getting like frustrated.
Yeah, pick one.
Because at the moment that they were talking, Nimona was a gorilla eating pizza on a metro train. And he was just like,
Yeah.
can't you just be one thing? Or just can't you go back to looking like a little girl?
Yeah, can't you go to something
Can't
that is
you-
consistent so I don't have to do, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Nimona's response was, why? And he was like, I just think it would be more comfortable. And they go, more comfortable for who? And
Yeah.
and so he was just like, you know, what are you? And her response was, I am Nimona. And as soon as she was like, but it was the way that Nimona said it, because they also had like a slice of pizza. All right, well, I guess he's done. They had like a slice of pizza hanging out of one, and they were being kind of laissez-faire about it when they were just like, I am Nimona. Like, I'm so done with your shit. And I'm like, replace Nimona with Alanna, and that is 100% how I like resonate with whatever the concept of gender is that exists.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't have labels for what I am. I don't care about the labels for what I am, really.
Yeah.
But none of the labels that other people have told me I'm supposed to have feel right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would rather just not have any, you know, because I don't need them, because I know who I am, and I don't need to be labeled. Like, I either want no labels for myself and to just be Alanna and have that be good enough, or I want labels for everything and they're all accurate. You know, both of those are wild extremes.
Yeah.
And highly unlikely. But I would rather, if we're gonna have labels, I would rather they be as accurate as possible, because language is how we communicate with each other. If we can't understand each other, then we're not communicating, and then we can't like build relationships and keep each other safe and converse and like share stories, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think Nimona really balances the story of a person's identity and their journey, and like how they interact with other people through experiencing trauma and pain and rejection, and how they treat each other about it, how they learn and grow. And like, that story is an amazing story, and they told it so well. The lines are hysterical. There's plenty of like one-offers in there that are just like quippy, repeatable quotes. We quote that movie in our house all the time.
Now I'm gonna have to watch it.
Oh, totally, absolutely,
cool.
highly recommend it.
All
Yeah. But it's also like the animation's really cool. Like I said, the soundtrack is really good. So like all the technical elements of it are also enjoyable. It's not just, look, we made a movie about a non-binary character.
Yeah.
You should love us. It's
Right.
like, no, it's also a great fucking movie. Like, and that is so rare to me, that I feel so compelled to share it so much, because it's not a story that's being told.
Yeah.
Yes. The Nimona comics were also delightful. Yeah. I haven't read the comics, but I have heard really good things about them. And it's like, I don't want that story to get lost, because it's such an important story for people to know about, because that makes it an option, you know?
And the option, I think the option is what makes dominionist Christianity, which is pretty much the engine on which this fucking country runs, it makes dominionist Christianity very uncomfortable, because if you don't have clearly defined parameters, how do you control the populace?
Right.
You know, how do you drive them in your fear? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they lose control, and then they panic.
Yeah.
And then lash out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like, I love Nimona because it's a good story, because it's technically impressive, and it's funny, and it's got a good soundtrack, and I want to share it. Go watch it. The other thing that I wanted to share in terms of content was actually a comedy special that is also on Netflix. There is an Australian autistic at minimum comedian Hannah Gadsby.
I love her so much.
I am so obsessed.
She's amazing.
I am so obsessed with her fucking comedy.
Yeah.
And so she put together a comedy special of multiple comedians, and they were all, it's called Hannah Gadsby's Gender Agenda. And I love the like playing with the words there and how that gender agenda thing sounds. I know they did that on purpose. The way that they structure each individual comedian's like bits, because it's like 5 or 6 comedians that participate in this, and they go bit to bit. Hannah opens with commentary that is, and I don't remember if this is a direct quote, but essentially the last time Netflix had this many trans people on screen, it was for a protest. Nodding back to Dave Chappelle's whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
Hannah called Dave Chappelle Netflix's pet edgelord, and I laughed deeply in my soul.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
I just can't let go of like easy comedy.
Right.
It's lazy fucking writing when you're punching down. It's lazy.
Try harder.
Come on.
Just try harder.
For fuck's sake, it's your job.
Right.
Write better jokes.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's like this particular special, each comedian was like some flavor of neurospicy, non-binary, queer, something like that, different identities, and from different places in the world as well. So it was like so much diversity in the cast, and each of their styles was a little different as well. So like one of the things I was talking about with one of my friends recently about this specific special was that how impressed I was with the fact that the comedy was actually good. Like, I didn't laugh at every single joke. Not every like thing hit 100%, but more of them did than didn't. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely enjoyed watching it as a comedy special, even though the topics were about like queerness and non-binariness and gender fluidness and all of that kind of stuff, even though that's what like the jokes were about, and even though that's who these people were representing, because that's what they are, it was still funny.
Nice.
You know?
Okay,
and if you're participating in comedy,
nobody
wants
should be funny.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch, let alone be a part of participating in a comedy special that isn't funny.
Yes.
Like, you don't want to be the person watching it to be like, oh, okay, clearly the producers just grabbed a bunch of queer, non-binary people and threw them in a room because they all happen to be comics, but they all kind of suck, so this is just going to be, oh, we're here because we're queer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not good either.
Right?
Like, it's just, if it's not funny, it's not fucking funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is masking as representation while not actually providing representation. Mm-hmm. It's pandering.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that shit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I was like showing this to so many people because I was so impressed that each comic had bits in it, and at least half of each comic's routines, I was like, genuinely, that's dope. Like, it was funny, it was witty, it was clever, it was like, it was good fucking comedy.
Sweet.
And I have been in the way back category of we've been hearing the same story over and over again in media. Comedy has also been kind of the same for a while, you know?
It really has.
And I'm ready for some new fucking comedy.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And this special, again, it's Hannah Gadsby's Gender Agenda on Netflix. And Nimona was the movie.
Sweet.
These things, I was very impressed because also coming from a place like Netflix, which is so large that it is very easy to be suspicious of their motives because corporations aren't people.
Yeah.
You know, that...
I'm still angry about Sense8.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get far into it, but I heard some things. And the responses were like, to say it was divided is a massive oversimplification, but like a lot of people were upset, and they were very loud about it. And I'm glad they were loud about it, because when people, like, when you do shit like that, it's consequences, right? Companies are exempt as much as the companies are the protagonists in that story. And we're used to the companies getting their way.
Yeah.
But you still have to tell people. because otherwise they won't know or they'll forget.
Yep.
You know? But yeah. Oh, we got a couple new people in the chat. I saw that number go up a little bit. Hey guys.
Welcome everybody that's watching.
Yeah, we've got like 15 minutes or so left. I wanted to reach out to the chat again, see if you guys had anything you wanted to share, ask, participate in, or questions about stuff that we've talked about already earlier in the episode. We were talking about, for anybody who's just joined in, we've been talking about gender and ethical non-monogamy portrayals in media specifically. And how tired we are of hearing the same story over and over.
For fuck's sake. Just go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Please go to therapy.
We need to make therapy accessible and affordable for everybody so that everybody can get it. Because I feel like, you know, I want people to be able to have emotionally intelligent conversations with their fellow human beings.
And emotional resilience fucking rocks.
Yes, right. It does.
know,
Feeling confident and resilient in yourself, your identity, and your relationships is like, that's goals.
It's a power move, man.
Oh, totally.
It's a power move.
Yeah.
You take the ability for other people to bully or harm you out of their hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's self-knowledge
It's power.
it's badass.
Yeah. And
it's necessary.
absolutely. And I reject the notion that all power is bad. You know?
Yeah.
Power isn't good or bad. Power just is.
Yeah.
It just exists.
Yeah.
It is a substance, a tool, an inanimate concept.
Oh yeah. Well,
You
I look at what Bill Gates does,
Mm-hmm.
and then I look at what Melinda Gates does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at what Jeff Bezos does,
And Dolly Parton.
what what Dolly Parton does, or what Jeff Bezos' ex does with
Yeah.
the money that she has. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, there are helpers, and like Mr. Rogers said,
Yeah.
look for the helpers. They're the ones that matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Like no human exists in a vacuum. Most humans don't exist in a vacuum. Most humans don't exist in a vacuum. We are social creatures by nature. Human beings, we are pack animals.
Yeah.
We are not designed to be like alone, you know? And so when we're alone, we go a little fucking crazy. And
yet-
so
and
building
yet
a
so many of
community
us-
is important. So we
Yeah.
need to be able to like trust each other and lean on each other and be vulnerable with each other for our literal mutual survival.
Yeah, especially going forward with the way that the election fell out.
Yeah.
The community is how we get through it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
know?
Ice Falcon makes a really good point. Power is a knife, morally neutral until utilized.
Yeah, it's
So
really
it's like,
good.
yeah, power is absolutely, it's a thing that you can wield responsibly
Yeah.
and ethically.
Yeah.
It's just that so many people don't.
Well, I think so many people get so trapped in their ego
Yeah,
that
because they're scared.
yeah.
It's all because they're scared. Everybody feeds their fear instead of
Yeah.
trying to find a way out of it.
Yeah.
And then they act from fear, and that ends up hurting people. And then those hurt people go on to hurt more people, hurt people, etc. You know, and it just creates this like snowball effect.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it.
It's exhausting.
We got to stop the cycle.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, there's I'd like to recommend a book
Yeah.
called Supercommunicators. I think the author is Charles Duhigg. It is a fantastic book. He goes into the kind of conversations that you're having, how to determine what kind of conversation you're having, so that both people who are conversing can get
Like
their
on the same page.
Yeah.
I definitely need to get this book.
It's a spectacular book.
Absolutely. There's nothing that happens to me more often than me figuring out what kind of conversation I'm having with somebody halfway in the middle of having it. And I'm like, I really wish I would have known what this was when we started so that I could have come to the table with an appropriate, like, adjustment of, like, investment and expectations and language and body language and all of that stuff. Like, the context is important. And if I don't know the context of the conversation we're having, then how am I supposed to engage with it appropriately, let alone productively, let alone healthily?
Yeah.
You know, if I don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But being able to figure that out is not something that people know how to do as much. I'm glad that they talk about it in the book. And I can't wait to read it because it would be super great for me to start like using that with people where I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
Exactly. And it really
I
is
need
that
context.
simple. It really is that simple.
Yeah.
I mean, if like, you know, a lot of us have friends who get upset and, you know, instead of immediately going to fix or immediately going to hug, hey, you know, how do you want to be supported? What
Yeah.
would work best for you? Do you want to vent?
Yeah.
Do you want answers?
Yeah.
You know, do you want to talk through your feelings?
Right.
You know, I mean, just
Absolutely, yeah. I am never 100% of the time going to remember, but as many times as I possibly can remember, I try to ask before I start conversations.
yeah.
Because like, yeah, I am in my head, my brain, not even I as a person, but my brain is very solutions oriented. And I don't generally feel inspired to tell people about a struggle I have unless I am at minimum open to suggestions or feedback.
Yeah.
If I don't really vent to other people necessarily. I usually vent to myself, like when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I'll
But
usually be clear that
Right. Exactly.
I need to get loud with someone else in the room.
Right, exactly. Like
know.
if literally all you need me to do is be present with you and scream into the ether because you're frustrated about something.
Maybe throw plates.
I can yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you need to break stuff? Do you need to like go scream real loud, blast the music? Like, do you just need to say fuck this bitch, whoever they are, a bunch of times into the ether so that you can get it out of your system? Like, tell me what you need from me.
Yeah.
And most of the time I will probably be able to help.
Yeah.
But if you don't give me that context, my brain's immediately going to default to they probably want suggestions. And it's on me to take the time before I respond to be like, what do you want from me? Like, not because I think that you need to want something specific, but because, again, I don't need the rules to be specific. I just need to know what they are.
Exactly.
And so if you tell me what the rules are, then we can play that game
Yeah.
and have that exchange and whatever. But if I don't know what the rules are, I'm not going to play it right.
Yeah.
And you're going to get mad because you're on a team with somebody who's never played before and they don't know what they're doing and you're losing.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And communication, I mean, it's throughout the course of a relationship, your communication needs are going to change.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and it is
And that's okay.
you have to explain that. You have to say, I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
Because again, we're not mind readers.
Yes,
You're not a
we're
mind
not
reader.
psychic.
I'm not a mind reader. You know.
You
so
should know. Like,
Yeah.
how?
You know what you
Did
did?
you-
What?
Did I develop ESP and I just didn't know it? Like,
Yeah.
was I?
And it's especially frustrating with ADHD because I don't always remember shit.
Yes.
So sometimes I will reach out and say, "Hey,
Yes.
I apologize in advance if you've told me this,
Yeah.
but my brain's a fucking
Can I get
cracker."
this again?
So
Yes. Absolutely.
yeah,
I fully I fully get so like bent out of shape when I am trying to like ask for help from somebody because the way they react to when I'm asking for help isn't like they don't do that work. If they don't do that work, like me trying to be like, "Hey, I need something from you." And they're just giving me, "Oh, but that sucks." And I'm like, "No, I need like help."
yeah, yeah,
Or, you know, I have to be the one to be like, "Okay, what do you need? I will help try to give it to you."
yeah.
Okay, we've got some stuff in the chat here. Thanks, guys. Okay, enough people with enough power don't utilize it responsibly, that it ruins it for the rest of us. Yep, Zooey, that is on point when we were back with talking about how, like, power is a tool
Oh yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm an empath. Same goes with venting to someone. Sometimes they want just emotional comfort. Sometimes they want actual solutions. Without clarification, that venting can turn into an argument. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many arguments I've not even started, but like ended up in, like realized I was in an argument in the middle of it. And I was like, oh, how did this happen?
Oh yeah.
When it started with me, like my brain trying to offer solutions because somebody that I care about is telling me that they're in pain or that they've experienced a bad thing or they're frustrated or stressed or like bad stuff. And I'm like, I want to help. I don't want you to feel like that.
Yeah.
How can I help? And then they lash out at me because I'm offering suggestions and they didn't tell me that they wanted to vent.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you'd said, I don't need you to try to fix anything for me. I literally just need to scream into the ether about it and be like, cool, bet.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
Oh yeah.
I'll help.
Yeah.
You can scream by yourself or I can scream with you. You can get whatever it is you need in that moment.
But it's, oh God, it's literally advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
It's advocating for yourself socially and conversationally.
Yeah.
By being clear about the kind of conversation that you can understand.
Yes.
And the kind of conversation that you want to have with another person.
Yeah.
Both of you have to be on the same page in order to communicate. Otherwise, it's like tab A and slot B aren't going to fit.
Right. Into the square hole.
Yeah.
Like, no, not everything goes in the square hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like, I think that the big, like, overarching thing that I hope these kinds of conversations have in the populace is that people tell more stories about different kinds of people. So, like, if I were to ask the audience anything, it would be to, like, do your art, tell your stories, share more stories about your life. And if everybody individually shares more stories about their own lives, then we get more stories in the world that tell each other about our race and how we interact with each other. And it gives everything context and flavor. And that is how we interact as humans. That's how we bond. That's how we protect each other. That's how we learn how to trust each other, is by sharing stories about ourselves so that you know who I am and I know who you are. But so many people have been made to feel afraid of talking about who they are because there are so many examples in media of what society expects you to do.
And what society does to you.
And what society does to you. Yeah, exactly. How people are going to react. Or your friends are going to laugh at you. You're going to get rejected by whoever. So don't do this. Or glorifying things that are harmful. Tell different stories.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I could sum it up, tell different stories. We need some fucking variety. And if you guys have suggestions of stuff that you think is a really good, like, positive contribution to the conversation about identity and gender and ethical monogamy and all that stuff, like, post on literally any of the Facebook posts about this video if you want. Send it to us directly and all of that stuff, because I really want to engage more with media that has a realistic, like, not even just more positive necessarily, because you know what? Sometimes
it's messy.
The story is messy and not positive. We've got just enough couple of minutes left in the end that I can get in something I forgot about that I wanted to say. There's a theater company, a nonprofit theater company, and I am blanking on the name right now, and I am gonna die of embarrassment because of that. But basically, they tell the stories of, like, gay and transgender youth of color, like, in the DC area. And me and one of my friends this year went to DC to the Kennedy Center, where they had their, like, 10-year anniversary, like, performance or whatever. And they're a cast of people, and the cast members all share stories of their lives, and then they use those stories and turn those into plays, like little mini, like, one acts, and they kind of overlap with each other and become this, like, giant swirl of different overlapping stories that all, like, comes to a conclusion at the end. And it was beautiful, and so many of the stories were, like, gut-wrenching reality where you're like, oh my god, no, like, this is literally exactly what this feels like. This experience is so raw and true, but it's not good. It wasn't a positive story in that way. It was, this is real pain and real trauma and a real person's experience of this part of themselves. And we are sharing that in Washington, D.C. And it was, like, it was rough. So, like, but I'm going to, if I remember who they're called, or if anybody else who's in here knows, shout out to AJ King, because you rock. Your whole company is the tits. But yeah, so it's, like, trying to find more art, and that's theater. So we've got, like, movies, TV shows, books, and stuff, and now also theater, because theater reaches a different layer of communication and a different layer of, like, immersion into society than just having a conversation with a person. Like, watching theater as opposed to TV and movies is a much more intimate, engaging way to experience someone's art and their message than, like, going to see a play or a musical about it, and it's, like, in your face and it hits you much differently.
Oh yeah.
More of that.
Yes. More
So
of
yes,
that.
have different conversations, talk about stuff with each other. Don't be so afraid to be vulnerable that you don't let yourself be vulnerable, and fuck the man.
Fuck the man. Thank you so much. For
Absolutely.
being
This
here.
was great.
Yeah.
And hey, look, we stuck to an hour exactly. I'm
Holy
so proud of
shit,
us.
I'm proud of us too.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys.
And have a great rest of your weekend.
Yay.